It's really a pleasure to be here today with somebody I've known for many, many years. And without going into all the details, just say we met when you were a teenager and I was only slightly older than that. And just for the sake of those who obviously wouldn't know this, you know, it was of course around the very first recording you made professionally, which as I recall was for EMI.
That's right.
It was a cassette.
Right. We had a record, we did get a record pressed, but we gave you the cassette.
You gave me the cassette.
It was called Get Up.
It was Get Up, right?
By Russ and Lee.
Russ and Lee, wow.
With 3 E's at that time, in the mid-70s.
And that was in the mid-70s.
Yeah.
And of course at that time, we wouldn't have known how long we would both be still doing this.
In the business, it's quite a long time.
It is, which is something to celebrate.
I know.
And something to congratulate each other on.
35 years.
Exactly.
35 years
of
the industry. I mean, one thing about that record, I must tell you, I don't think you even knew, that record called Get Up, Part 1 and Part 2, had nothing to do with James Brown, but the musicians on the record were Gonzalez.
Really?
The backing musicians were Gonzalez, who had the hit "Hands Stop Dancing," yeah, and the background singers were called Thunder Thighs. I know it sounds funny, Thunder Thighs, but they were the same backing singers that sang on Lou Reed's "Walk on the Wild Side."
Wow.
Where you go, the color girls go. And at the time when we were doing this, I didn't think anything about it. I just thought, oh yeah, Lou Reed, you know, Gonzalez, but then later on you think, wow, this is it wasn't a hit record, but it's historic, I was part of something that was a historical record.
Sure. And that, of course, that was our first professional interview for Blues and Soul magazine.
Blues and Soul magazine.
And you've both come a long way since then.
Oh my goodness. But I have to thank you, because Blues and Soul was, and you were part of this great, phenomenal magazine that traced and placed all of our history, all the music from America, all the music from, and you did some wonderful interviews. I mean, you interviewed every major black artist I wanted to know: Aretha Franklin, Diana Ross, Randy Crawford, all the funk artists. Yeah. You were there with your pen and pad at the time.
That's true.
You were everywhere.
It was a pen and a pad too.
Yeah. If we didn't read your reviews, we wouldn't look at it.
Wow.
You know, and that was what was so important to us. So that's why we went to Blues and Soul, because it was the premier magazine of all time for all artists.
Well, one of the things that's great, Lee, I know we want to focus on today, talking about your brand new album, Retropia, yes, and we will be talking about some of the individual songs. But one of the things that I noticed, I was listening to it, is that your earliest influences, you know, some of the artists you were just talking about, and how you have managed to stay true to the music that you grew up listening to. Is that like a conscious choice? Like you've always made sure that the music that you do, in a sense, I want to say references, I don't mean that it's a copy of it, I mean it has the clear influence of some of the great artists of that time.
Totally. I think the artists of those periods are my Bible. I digest them. They're like a daily Bible. I listen to today's music, of course, but I find the music of the past gives me influence a lot. You know, in the mornings I'll put on Ella Fitzgerald.
Really?
And oh yes, truly, before I go and do my little daily swim, I will go and put Ella Fitzgerald, and that will give me my stimulus. And from that, I may put Ashton Simpson or Luther Vandross or something like that. And in doing the Retropia album, I wanted to give back the fans something that they felt they knew already, but in today's environment, they don't always hear. And I wanted to have real instruments, real bass, and familiar kind of feels. Like the first track, Utopia, some of the people have said to me, it reminds them of like Isaac Hayes.
Absolutely.
It reminds them of that kind of Norman Whitfield. I intentionally wanted to capture that because that's what I love so much. And I thought, you know what, I don't care, I just want to do it and I want to feel it that way. I'm going to do little bits of this, bits of that, but I'm going to do it from my viewpoint, in a UK point of view, because I've been on it. I used a lot of very strong UK musicians.
Wow, great. Well, and that's actually, it's interesting because as I was listening, exactly how you described it is what I was left with. Like I thought, wow, this really does, as you were talking about the first track, as soon as I started playing, this really takes me back to that what I call like the golden era of soul,
Yeah.
which is the 70s. I mean, with all respect to the 60s and respect to the decades that came afterwards, you know, for me that is the golden era. That's the era of using full orchestras. It's the era of, you know, lush arrangements. It's the era
and funk.
Yeah, exactly.
Heavy
Funk.
Yeah.
And also the time period when jazz, you know, when there's the whole emergence of you know, jazz merging with funk, with R&B, so you get all of that flavor that came really only in the 70s, began in the 70s.
Yeah.
And that particular track definitely reminded me, it took me back to that era.
Yeah.
So if that was your intention,
Oh, totally.
if that was your objective, it definitely got realized.
Thank you.
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
It was, and the funny thing about some of these tracks,
Yes.
I've performed them for quite a few years, but
Really?
never put them on any Imagination albums or any of my own albums. And there's a couple tracks: Utopia, Fantasia, Make Your Mind Up, Hello Goodbye. These songs, I like throw them into the show.
Yeah.
And people would think they know them. And then I recently did a jazz show in London, and I did Utopia. And everybody was just like, where can I get this track? And I thought, it's time.
Yeah.
It's time, because I put it in the show. And for me, I went back to France where I recorded my jazz album. I went back to Rochefort, to the Alhambra studio, where I recorded it, because it had the environment that I was so isolated from modern society, so to speak.
Yeah, your everyday life.
Yeah, everyday life, because you're just consumed. It's not Los Angeles, it's not New York, it's not London. It's a very small town. I think it closes at 9 o'clock. And seriously, you go out and it's a ghost town in Rochefort. It's really like that. But it's good because you just focus only on that.
Yeah.
You know, so I was conditioning myself to that. And I appreciated it. And I brought my special engineer, Divaz. He was with me. He's worked with me for quite a few years, since the late 80s, and also on the jazz album. So it was something for him, because he likes it. He likes that discipline. And our engineer, Francois Gauchot, he still can't speak very good English, and I still speak my pidgin French. But we get by because music crosses that barrier.
That's true. That's true. Well, it's particularly interesting. I know you're referencing the jazz album, and I, of course, remember when it came out, seeing you at the morning.
New Morning.
New Morning in Paris.
Yeah.
So, can you say a little bit about your relationship to France and to French audiences? Obviously, they have appreciated seeing another side of you, which I'm sure may have been a little more challenging here in Britain because people relate to you a particular way.
Yes.
And it seems to me that like the French have embraced you stretching your own creativity. They're like not allowing it, because obviously you are free to do what you want, and it seems like they've embraced another side of you musically. What do you want to say about your relationship to French and France?
Well, you know, France and surrounding areas in Europe, especially with the jazz album, they welcomed me because I think they have the African influences, they've got Caribbean influences, the French influences, and I felt creatively that there was no boundaries.
Wow.
I could do anything I wanted to do.
Yes.
And you know, I wasn't conditioned, I wasn't following a pattern, and I was being allowed to do it. I was allowed to breathe. And what happens is, people in America listen to this, people in other parts of Europe listen to it, Japan. Here it's different. We have a different environment in the UK. It's very musical still, but very different. And it seems like I have to go across to France to do it, and then people listen here. Because all of a sudden people are now discovering the Feel My Soul album, the jazz album. They're now discovering it, and it's become one of those things where people are spending a lot of money to get the album.
Wow. Okay.
So
good.
I think, exactly. So for me to go back and do Retropia there was less of a challenge. It was just, it seemed like a natural progression. And I felt I really wanted to give something back to the fans that they wanted to hear from me. So I wanted to have a little bit of imagination feel, but not living in the past, but still giving them a touch of the vocals.
Like a reference to that.
Yeah, a reference, yeah.
Well, I want to talk to you about, I don't know if we'll have time to do all the tracks, but we certainly should pick out a few. And the second track, so we've talked a little bit about Utopia. So the second track is Secrets, which I see you co-wrote with Steve Nicol of Loose Ends.
That's right.
And one of the founding members of Loose Ends.
Yeah.
And I have to ask you, of course, we're going to assume for a moment that people who are watching this have not yet heard the song.
Okay.
Hopefully they will be hearing it shortly after they see this. And it sounds, it's very personal.
Mm-hmm.
And of course I have to ask you, is it autobiographical? Who wrote the words? You or Steve?
No, Steve came up with an idea on chords and stuff. And I become very technical in a way.
Yes.
And so sometimes someone will give me a piece of music and I'll cut it up, I'll do this, I'll add that, and I'll add some bits. I did a different bass player on it, I did this and stuff. And the lyrics came from me when I was in holiday in Trieste. I was watching, and this is true, I was watching, R. Kelly has done a series, In the Closet it's called. And it's an amazing series, he's acting all these different parts. And he was singing all the bits. And then someone gave me his biography, so I was reading R. Kelly's biography.
Okay.
And that inspired me to do this, the song Secrets. Yeah, because there was so many secrets going on in this thing. And I thought, how would this be? And I use a few situations that I
might have encountered.
You know, 2 champagne cocktails later sounds like me, but so many different things. But Secret seems to have, a lot of people who have heard the track really do like it because it has a today feel, but it also has a retropic sort of feel to it. Yeah. So that was the influence. Retropic. Yeah. So it was influenced really by R. Kelly.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Amazing. And you know, for those who will be listening to, of course, the storyline of it is about someone who meets someone in a hotel.
That's right.
And they have a liaison.
A rendezvous.
A rendezvous.
And you know what? There's on guitar. There's Bluey from Incognito. Playing guitar on there. Wow. And he was the influential one to get me and Steve and myself together because I know Steve Nicol from Blue Sense for quite a long time. So Bluey travels all over the place.
Yes.
So we wrote Secrets and the other track Do It Right Now.
Yes. Wow. Yes. Now Do It Right Now, if I'm correct, is that's track number 5, which is very much as I listen to it, very much in America there's something called what's it called? Step. Yeah, that's right. Step kind of track. Yes. Yeah.
It's like that. You know, when I hear it, it reminds me of the days. And we were rehearsing today, and I was saying to the guys, think a higher player's fire.
Yes,
that was the kind of thing.
Yes.
And it was only just because sometimes you do something, you're thinking, I want this kind of film, and it was like fire. Baby, do it, keep it tight on the land now, baby, baby, do it right now. It was that kind of, and the thing about that, it was, it reminded me also, there was a funny thing, it reminded me of Shalamar and that kind of feel, totally. Dynasty and
all the Solar, Shalamar, Dynasty,
and it wasn't intentional, it was just that, something I embraced, and I thought that would be really cool to kind of do something like that.
Yeah, well, it's great, it's very it's infectious. It's and I can definitely see people dancing to it all over the place. Well, because it's got that. It's rhythmic. It's got the kind of flavour. It does harken back to
Retropic.
So actually, before we go any further, it's interesting because I just realised as you were saying it again, as you said a couple of times, the word retropic is really, in other words, it's what you're referring to is it's retro.
Yeah.
But say more about it.
Yeah, it's retro, but it takes you into today's world. It brings you into today's world. You know, it's like we're on the same planet, but we're taking you back, but it's bringing you forward at the same time. So it's like a taste of the past, but bringing you. It's like very retropic. It has the.
I love the word. Did you make up the word?
Yeah,
doesn't really.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a Leee John word.
I better patent that. Trademark it. Yeah, seriously.
Before somebody else comes along and takes it away. Okay, so another song that I know that in the past you have on occasion covered songs. I know that isn't necessarily something you do a lot, but I also know you well enough to know that you know literally thousands and thousands of songs. And I know probably on cue I could ask you to sing something and you could sing it, I could probably sing along. But we're not going to do that in this particular interview. And I'm really curious about why you picked the Eddie Kendrick song, Tell All Lovers Felt the Need, which is not it's not a massive hit. It's a song that if you're an Eddie Kendrick fan, you know. But it isn't like Keep On Trucking or
Boogie Down.
Boogie Down, exactly. So it was something that is kind of buried a little bit in an album, and a great song. So what was it about the song?
Well, I've recently been doing I'm thinking about a tropic. I was going to say. I've recently been doing another project with the British Collective. The British Collective, some other R&B singers from the UK, Junior Disco, Donny, Noel McCoy, and Omar.
Yeah.
And Junior was talking to me, and we were talking about some different songs to do.
Yes.
And he was talking to me and said, you know, I really could hear you singing this Eddie Kendrick song. Do you remember it? Till I Love Us Felt the Need. I said, oh my God. I remember this being in the soul charts like number 2 years ago in Blues and Soul.
Yeah.
And I used to get tingles when I used to hear this song.
Yes.
And so I thought, you know what? I would love to try this song. I thought maybe it's the time to do it, but I didn't want to, I wanted to give it justice because there are Eddie Kendrick fans out there that would just go kind of crazy. So what I did do, I kind of compromised. I did a version for the British Collective, which is completely different. It has more of a contemporary feel. And it's more programmed music. While with the whole Retropia album, there's a lot of live playing. Yeah. And with the Till I Love Us Felt the Need, I wanted you to feel the bass. I wanted you to feel that there was someone playing that guitar and the keyboards. In fact, my keyboard player on there, there's a few of them, but one of them who played on that. He played with Massive Attack. Yes. He's played with Thames Trent D'Arby. Yeah. That's Mike Timothy. And he played on that, did a few vibes and things. And Until I Love Her Felt the Need, I thought my different interpretation for this album, I felt was homage to Motown, to Eddie Kendricks, and to keep that legend alive in a sense, because people forget.
Absolutely. Well, something I want to ask you particularly specifically about that, you know, these days it's very rare, I'd say, to hear a man singing a song almost entirely, if not entirely, in falsetto, right? And I know that people who know you know that you are absolutely capable of that. And clearly, the way you did that song, which of course Eddie Kendricks was probably in that Motown time period, in the time period of the late 60s and through the 70s, was probably the quintessential singer who sang falsetto, who sang falsetto.
Totally.
So I'm just going to ask you from just a standpoint of like, how is that natural? Is that just like a natural way for you to sing, or do you have to really work at it? Have you always sung? Have you always been?
I sang high. I mean, it was like I listened to all the background singers. That was one of the ways to get harmony. So I was doing the ooh, it was always like the gospel feel. I was like, or I kind of got attracted to all that. And when I started listening to the early records, and if it was like, I just listened to that and sing with that. Okay. And so it just naturally came. And as I've got older, I've been singing in lower registers.
Yeah, of course.
Since I did the jazz. But it's not, I don't have problems singing the high voice if I had good sleep, rested and everything, I'm okay. But it does come very naturally in the mornings and stuff like that. Singing lower sometimes can be a problem.
A bit more work.
It's a little bit more work. I mean, recently I do one of the imagination songs, In the Heat of the Night. I do different interpretation, and sometimes I do this really low octave, and it's like in a middle sort of range, and it's kind of, it's like, I want to push it out a little bit differently from together, you know, I'm trying to, but I feel the voice is like an instrument, and that's how I take it. It's like a brass or a string, and that's how I take my voice. I kind of see, like when I'm singing with the keyboards, or if I'm singing with the bass or guitar, I feel as if I'm the same.
Like an instrument.
Yeah, totally. That's how I feel when we're rehearsing or on stage. It's like a different hunger. And in doing all of these songs on the album, it was another way for me to vocally express. You know, in a different way. And it's like a different emotion for each song. So in a sense, this whole album has a conceptual sense to it.
That's very interesting. I mean, well, firstly, what you said about the voice as an instrument is, if you go back to jazz in particular, there are singers like Billie Holiday, whom, you know, they definitely, you know, their voices were almost like instruments.
Totally. She had a brass
yeah,
thing
exactly.
where, you know,
So
like,
it's very interesting that
love is just like a faucet. That could have been
exactly.
She had that kind of sense. And even recently, I watched two films, one about Miles Davis, which I wasn't too cool about, and the one on Chet Baker. And when I was first doing the jazz album, I started to listen to Chet Baker. But I also listened to Dizzy Gillespie, I listened to Duke Ellington, Ella, Sarah, and all these people. And they're all amazed at musicality.
Of course.
And I think once you engulf all of that, it becomes part of you. And then we go off and go into the funk and all the 80s and chic and stuff. And I've been so blessed because I've been on tour with Kool and the Gang, I've been on tour with Earth, Wind & Fire, and being on the same stage and performing with these guys, and then representing the UK imagination. It's like, wow, this is a blessing, this is something. So that's another reason I think doing this album, because I was working with the Kool and the Gangs and Earth, Wind & Fire, and I thought, I need to put a bit of this essence as well.
Yes, yeah, well, very much. Well, one of the things you've referenced this a few times. I wanted, you know, I don't know if we've ever talked in depth about it, but I am curious. Like, how did you get exposed to this music growing up? I mean, was it in your household? Was it amongst your friends? I mean, how did you get? I mean, you referenced, you know, we just saw Bill Holiday, and you said you listened to Ella Fitzgerald in the mornings, and apart from, of course, we know that you would have been exposed to the funk and the R&B of the 70s, like many of the people of your age and my age, so that I can see that. And was this music that was in your household? I mean, how did, I mean, what was like in the John household? What would people be?
You're gonna laugh. You're really laughing.
Yeah.
I was speaking to my mum the other day.
Yeah.
And we were talking about when I was about 2 or something like that. 2?
Okay.
And she's saying to me, my father bought me one of those paper records. You know, they had these little paper records.
No.
Well, not paper. They were made of like. Yeah, there were little things. I think the kids or something, or little paper things, and you put them on the turntable. And on it, it was a record by Helen Shapiro.
Oh yeah.
And I think it was
Walking Back to Happiness.
No, it was oh my love, I love you so, but you don't know how much I care. Da 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 da. You don't know.
Okay.
And I remember that as a kid, like 2.
Right.
And my mother was saying, you don't remember, you don't know. And I thought, and it came back to me. Walking Back to Happiness, I think everybody knew, but you don't know, had this melodic phrase that stayed in me. So that was one. I listened to Motown. I remember before even Motown, that my father or my sister was buying the Ronettes. It was really hard edge. And Nat King Cole, of course, and there was always an album like Dinah Washington and Brooke Benton.
Yes.
And then obviously you had ska, you had reggae, you had all these different, you know.
So you did grow up in a musical household?
Oh yeah, totally. My mother liked to dance a lot. My father used to play a little bit of saxophone. And then I went in the choir. I was always doing the choir. And I went to live in the States for 5 years.
Yes.
And while I was in the States, I got influenced to a mass of music.
Okay.
It was crazy. I was listening to things like, I mean, everybody was, when I arrived in the States, they were just into the second single of the Jackson 5. And my cousins were saying to me, you don't know the Jackson 5? And I said, no.
Yeah.
And they introduced me to You Love You Save and
ABC.
Yeah. But I was interested in things, the groups like the Persuaders.
The
Love's Gonna Pack Up, the thin line between love and hate. Black Moses. I remember Laura Lee. I remember Jean Knight, Mr. Big Stuff, and oh my God. Then they had the Shy Lights, very popular, and there were all these homegrown groups where they were on different record labels, where you know the different colors in New York. I remember it was amazing. They were like urban records, R&B, but everybody knew them.
Yes.
Carla Thomas, Bruce Thomas, the Funky Chicken, all the dancers were in there, the Penguin, all those kind of things. And by the time I came back to the UK, it was very different because they were into Slade and The Sweet and all that kind of stuff, and Bowie just emerged. And so I was thinking, my goodness, where's all this? It was like a different capsule of time I just come from. So I had to start buying import records to get my hunger of American music.
Satisfied.
Yes. And I started going to all the clubs, all the black clubs in the UK, all the DJs. My Bible was Blues and Soul magazine, just to have, you know, all that. And And I think that's what really did it. You know, I was always looking at B-sides and album tracks and everything.
Said it wrong. Retropia.
Retropia.
Retropia. Solitude. Can you talk to us about solitude?
We're in a private solitude. Bum 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 solitude. It was a song that was going to go on the jazz album, and it had a very Latin feel to it.
Yes.
And I was feeling very Gilberto Gil, that kind of flavor.
Yes.
And for some reason it didn't end up on there, and it was something that, you know, I thought to myself, why did we not put it on? It was like, and when I was trying to get some tracks for the album, I wanted something that was obviously uniquely different, but also that I could also have some real percussion, some real guitars, and something that I do like Latin music as well, you know. It's kind of close to the Caribbean with calypso and steel band, and it has that kind of thing. And I wanted something that would be within all the other records, a sort of an interlude track, an interlude track that basically, when you're sitting down having a glass of wine or champagne in my case, you know, something that's really cool and also a different influence, you know, because I feel that the Retropia album has different genres of music styles, but still I'm singing it. Yeah. But with Solitude, a kind of a Latino expression.
Well, it's interesting you said about different styles, because it leads me right straight to what I was going to ask you about next, which is an AC/DC song, Highway to Hell, and I had to kind of check my CD player. Like, oh dear, you know, something's happened here. They must have, when they were mastering the CD, they obviously. Is this Leee John? What is this? Because it was a little like, whoa. So what, I was going to ask you, like, why did you pick that? Nothing wrong with it. It's just kind of, it's different.
It is. I mean, that's what I like. I've always been edgy in my expression, in my musical taste, but not always.
And in your videos.
In my videos, always different. But I've never always done it on CD, vinyl, whatever. I haven't always had that time to show it. And I was working with this artist, and actually the artist that did the album cover, his name is David Lalou, but he's also known as Redito. He has a team of people. So if you look inside the album, there's all these little sort of graphic things, and he's an expressionist, he's an artist expressionist.
Yes.
And we were in his studio, and we were doing a project, funnily enough, with the Gibson brothers. And the Gibson brothers were great friends of mine, and they did Cube and all that, and Que Sera. And we were talking about some songs to do, and I was saying that I want to do something different for the album. And he started playing a few different things, and I thought, oh, AC/DC. I said, yeah, but I said to him, I need to do it Lee's way, with a tinge of the gospel going, give a little bit of something else, but edginess, you know, living easy, living free. And I almost sounded a bit like Tina Turner at one point, and they were saying, no, keep that's really cool, we've got to keep that. But I liked it because I thought it was like, it reminded me when we're in a room and we're just jamming, and it was just a free musical expression. So we were there just doing it. And it just came out, highway to hell, and we said, let's put it down. And I thought, that's taking me back to how I really started in music.
Really?
Very basic. All the percussion stuff is all boxes and all different shakers and stuff. And then we took it into another studio to master it, but not refine it greatly. I wanted to keep it very raw. And that's what you get.
Well, you do get that. You get that. For sure, you get that. Now, there's a I think, a very inspirational song, Brighter Day. Now, you correct me, but have you done that live?
No, I've never done that live. No, I've never. Wow. There's a story behind that. It's a sad one. Last year, I had a very tragic time. I lost a lot of very personal people. In actual fact, doing this album, I must say, totally was a total personal, emotional experience for me. It's the first time that I was under so much personal grief, but still had to come through and enlighten myself through music. And it showed me sometimes how the universe is, and it brings you back. And it actually, you know, it was like, my God, how am I going to do this? I had to put to rest one of my best friends. I had to put my sister to rest because she passed. And the funny thing, I was in Munich and I heard my sister had passed. And I was doing this project and I was writing. with this producer, and I was writing the track Brighter Day. And what happened was, I brought it back home, and obviously I put my sister to rest, and I put it on the computer, from the computer, and I wouldn't look at the song at all. And I just thought, I can't look at it. And then somehow or the other, I knew I was going to France to do the album, and I was still looking at certain tracks, and I opened the MP3 and I listened to it, and I thought, she's speaking to me.
Wow.
And I felt she was telling me that I have to keep going. And the lyrics I wrote were Brighter Day, and that basically, you know, we go through all this and we have to try and be strong. And I thought, maybe I need to really expose this to everybody. I need to let this side of me be shown.
Yeah.
And so there's two songs. That one, Brighter Day, I did the best I could. There's two different stories with that. But Brighter Day was my sister's influence, and you know, I feel her here. And even talking about it, you know, I get a bit worked up. But it's one of those things where I felt, if I can encourage people, I call it my Michael Jackson song. That's what I call it. Heal the world and stuff. I call it my Michael Jackson song. And basically my background vocals that I work with, they're on it singing with me. And it's the first time I've done that kind of song in a very, very long time that, you know, I think could be inspiring
very
to
much,
people.
very much. That is, you know, that is very much how it comes across. Yeah, it's great. It's great. Well, good that you did that.
You know.
I also think that what you just referenced is really important, because what people, you know, music, you know, can be used for many different things, but one of the things it absolutely does provide for people is healing.
Yeah, and that's what I felt with Brighter Day. I felt I need to heal myself.
Exactly.
I probably need to heal others.
Exactly.
And there are people in the same place as me. And there are people that have supported me and given me my career.
Absolutely.
Definitely. So I feel we have to have that communication.
Yeah.
When they write me or email me and say, Lee, you know, this song means something to me, I can actually say, well, it did to me. That's why I wrote it. You know.
Yes.
And I must say, the co-writer with me, was very helpful. He just knew what I was going through, this turmoil, but we plowed through it and we did the song, you know. So it was another, I think I was very tested, put to the test, because sometimes you have life's so free and it's so easy and everything's woo, and then all of a sudden, bam, it hits you. And then I had to really show how I could maintain it, and it's given me more inner strength.
Good. Good. Well, I know we don't have a lot more time, so I'm going to ask you, is there another song that we haven't talked about that you particularly want to
Well, I can go through everything.
I know you could.
Okay, Fantasia.
But is there one in particular?
There's Fantasia. Fantasia was a 12-inch single in the early 90s under another name. And I redid it. It had an NWA loop under it, and all the hip-hop and DJs used to play it. So everybody's been asking me for years, whatever happened to this track? It's a white label. I had a different name, Johnny X, underneath it, or I called it Carmichael, which is my middle name. And, you know, so I thought, you know, maybe I'll redo this one, because people wanted to hear it. So that was one, and the other one is Make Your Mind Up. Now, Make Your Mind Up has a long story. Make Your Mind Up is my homage to, say, Ashford and Simpson, because I love their music for so many years. And it's got this huge gospel, Make Your Mind Up! It's got that, you know, uplifting feel to it. This song we wrote, I think, in 1984.
You're joking.
1984, 85. I wrote it with Toby Baker.
1984?
Toby Baker and I wrote this track. And it was going to be for an Imagination album. Toby's written with Shaka Khan, he's written with Anita Baker, he's done so much stuff with many different people he's worked with. And we're great mates. I call him the union leader because he's very funny. And he kept saying to me, Lee, we've got this song, you know, and you've never ever used it. We got a deal from it. I got the deal, one of our Imagination albums, we got a deal for BMG because of that song. And yet we went to America, we recorded in Los Angeles and New York and Chicago and Philadelphia, and that song got put in the drawer. But I used to sing it on stage. So fans all over around the world knew the song. And when I do it in shows, people think, you know, I did a show recently for 20,000 people in France, and everybody thought they knew the song. So I think it's about time that we let
Yes.
this song breathe again.
Yes.
And I've got this wicked bass player on it. I've got his name, for his name. But it's got all real instrumentation on there as well.
Brilliant.
So you feel like the old feel when you just used to listen to old music in the 70s.
Yes.
You'd hear the real bass, you'd hear the guitar, you'd hear the drums, and that's what I wanted. And real vocals, you know, very important.
Okay.
On the Retropia album, there's a few other tracks I'd like to talk about.
Yeah.
My good friend Mike Linda from Level 42,
Yes.
we did a duet of the Stevie Wonder song Visions.
I've actually seen you do that live, I think.
Yes, you have.
Yes.
You have. And we actually filmed a video together, and the proceeds go to SOS Children. We did it for a particular SOS Children village in Zambia. So we have a really nice video. And I think on September the 21st, there will be the launch of the Retropia website, www.retropia.co.
Okay, good.
And you'll see a lot of videos. We have some bonus tracks on the album. A special version of Just an Illusion, because people have been asking, and I got about 3,000, 5,000 million versions, and I get fed up with them. So no more Illusion mixes, please. And then there's a track called The Truth. And The Truth I'd done for a Greatest Hits, and it never got the light of day, so I kept everything back, including the video. Now it's the time for it to breathe. And so you will see the new video, and we have a different version of The Truth on the album, because also it's very meaningful. I think it's that people will identify to the track, because I think everybody reaches that pathway in their life where they think, you know, I want the world to see.
Yeah.
It's me. It's about time. You know, I've been given, and the truth in the lyric has that. And then there was a track I had called Crash with a K. And it's very funky. It actually takes you back to, say, the Sly and Family Stone, Prince, that kind of vibe to it.
Yes.
So I think I've kind of got a kind of total, packaging there. And there's one track my very, very best friend who passed was listening to a couple of weeks before he went and called. I did the best I could. I did my best for you. And we do it in our show. And a lot of people have kind of graduated towards this song, because the lyric is, you know, I've done all I want, done everything I've done in my life, but you know, after all of it, I really did it for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great way with this interview to say, I've done this album for everybody. I did the best I could. I did my best for you.
Oh, that's lovely. Well, I do have one final question. I know that was a great ending.
Okay.
I just want to ask you, you know, so you've been making records literally since what we said, since the mid-70s.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Early to mid-70s, right? Did you ever expect to be doing what you're doing now? Then, did you have any idea, like here you were in school, making this, you know, Russ and Lee and Russ, Russ and Lee track, you know, for EMI, Get Up, this is where we started. Did you ever imagine, that's a good word to use here,
imagine.
Did you ever have the imagination to think that you would still be doing this now?
No, not really. I think what was in my mind, I was around a lot of artists at a very young age. Doris Troy, you know, I met her at the Rainbow Theatre, and she asked us to get up and sing for her.
Yeah.
You know, and
I was
dance.
there.
Yes, we were dancing on stage. I met
there.
War. I met, oh my goodness, I met Linda Carr and the Love Squad. I was thinking the other day, we went to see a show. Linda Carr and the Love Squad saw us dancing and asked us to come and dance on stage with us. You know, remember? And it was these little small little things, and it was bringing me closer and closer and closer to what I wanted to do. Then I ended up doing bingo halls and working man's clubs and George Canning pub in Brixton, and you know, these pubs and stuff. And I was feeling the hunger, I was feeling the thirst, I was feeling the energy. But I was told at a very early age, and it always stayed and embedded in my brain, if you want to do it, it's about the work.
Yeah.
It's not about being the star. The star is something that you can create quite easily, because as my song says, it's an illusion. It's about being the worker, putting the time in, creating, you know, and that stayed with me. And even when we became successful with the first single, Body Talk, I thought, oh my goodness, the work is going to start now. And it did, and it continued. And I thought, I'd written one song which became a classic, which is Body Talk, and I thought, it's not going to go any further. And then the whole album just went off crazy, and every single track was released. And I thought, oh my goodness, but it was about the work. We were working ourselves all around the world in different radio shows and in a little car in France, going to all these radio stations in Italy. It was about the work. You know, the costumes and the look were great for TV. You had 3 minutes of time on TV, so you had to give them bam. And we took a lot from the theatre, we took a lot from America, and we said, right, we want to be uniquely different. And that sustained us. But yet again, it was about the work. And that was the whole situation. And I've kind of kept that with me in my focus to make sure that it is about the work. You know, if you've got to rehearse and rehearse and rehearse and rehearse till you get it right. And I also say that to a lot of the youngsters today. It's about the work, your body of work that you do. And so I don't really think of how much I've done. I just keep on doing it.
Just keep doing it.
Yeah, because it will stay there. You know, I call it my little battery pack. It's there. You know, it's there. I don't think of. I know it's there. I know the hits we've had and the success. But I don't dwell on it. I just think I have to make it even more better.
Just keep moving.
You keep moving.
Just keep on moving, to quote Soul to Soul. Or we could go back to Eddie Kendricks and say, keep on trucking.
Keep on trucking, baby.
Well, Leee John, that's brilliant. That's exactly perfect.
Thank you. I mean, I would say that being interviewed by you is always a classic moment.
Okay.
Because you have been one of the, I should say, the godfathers of pen, I should say, of writing.
Well, not pen anymore, but
of journalism. No, because I mean, I'm honored because you've interviewed some of the greatest people that have contributed to music, and for you to actually be interviewing me, I'm also very thrilled. No, I really believe that.
Well, I have to tell you, I will say this on camera, I think this is one of the best pieces of work you've ever done.
Thank you.
I really mean that. It's heartfelt.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, great, Leee John. Come on now, keep going. Another 40 years.
Keep on chucking.
All right.
Thank you.